Happy early New Year, everybody. This is Locked on Buckeyes Live. We are going to be here getting you ready for tomorrow's game, well, a couple days game, the Rose Bowl. My guy, our guy, Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network is here with us. How can Ohio State win the Rose Bowl? What are some strengths? What are some weaknesses? What will be the impact of the opt-outs? All that and more, plus some game predictions right here on Locked on Buckeyes Live.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes for the Locked on Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Thursday, December 30th in the year 2021, and today's episode is brought to you by NetSuite. NetSuite is the number one cloud financial system to power your growth. Locked on NCAA. Financing on the number one financial system, growing businesses. We tease it all week long. The man is here. He is back. Jeff Hunt from the network. He's excited. He's got his Ohio State gear on. His coaches had us ready. I got mine on. We're ready to go, Jeff. Big game, the granddaddy of them all, and the Buckeyes will be playing.
It's wild, man. It almost took me, 30 days or so, but I texted you earlier. I think I've finally come full circle. I'm finally excited for this game. I grew up my whole life. I grew up in Ohio. The Rose Bowl for the first 30 years or so of my life meant everything to me. I don't want to dismiss, how important it is, though I'm disappointed not to be in the college football playoffs. But I'm finally excited. I'm eager. I'm optimistic more than some others. So I'm ready to go, man. It's here.
It's here. Disappointed, yes. Optimistic as well. This is a great game to me. You heard it on the show we did on Thursday with Brian Brown from Locked on Utes. The grass, the backdrop, the day, the time slot. I mean, everything about this screams college football, tradition, history, the excitement. Like, this day is it's me. Curbs already tweeted is literally a gift for 4 hours, 3.5 to 4 hours, getting to watch a game in Southern California. And it's a luxury. I'm watching the game no matter who's playing, but it's a luxury this year that, Jeff, the consolation prize is the Rose Bowl.
It's amazing. It's a beautiful game. It's awesome. I am thankful to be in it, as upset as I was a few weeks ago. It is really cool. For all those who are angry about the playoffs being on New Year's Eve, it's because of the Rose Bowl. Like that is absolutely, the truth. But it's going to be cool. It's been a few years since we've been in it. We've actually a lot of Ohio State fans don't remember. We had to miss a couple Rose Bowls because of going to the national championship game. It was kind of weird. There's a famous game with Beanie Wells with a rose in his mouth, and then lo and behold, we go to the national championship game. So we actually don't get to go to the Rose Bowl, but it'll always be special. I hope that the players feel that way. It's just it's different. It's just everybody that's watching football at that moment at 5:00 on that Saturday afternoon on New Year's Day is watching this game, and it just has this weird way of becoming a spectacle. It's awesome, man.
And something that we are going to see on Saturday that we have not seen long is 4 Ohio State players deciding to opt out of playing in the game. We have seen players not be eligible to play. I don't think we've seen this combination of 4 players not play in one game this year. Nicholas Freya, starting left tackle, and opting out. Garrett Wilson, not going to play. Chris Olave, not going to play. Haskell Garrett, not going to play. We talked about it. Brian Brown and I talked about it just a day ago on the crossover episode. If you missed that, I'm going to keep highlighting that If you missed that show on Thursday, I highly encourage you, either on YouTube or on the audio platform of your choosing, check that out because that was a lot of good information about a 40-minute show. You don't want to miss it. Share it with your family, your friends, Utah friends as well. I don't care. Share it to everybody. Those 4 guys out, Jeff, you heard who I think is maybe the most important player that is opting out in Haskell Garrett. Popular belief. You're going to say, somebody might say Alabin. Skill guys are great. I don't care. Nicholas Petit-Frere, great. He's interior. We already got a starting left tackle that's playing right next to him. Great. I don't care, but not that big. To me, losing Haskell Garrett is huge. Interior presence for this team has been absent for a while. You have no pass rush, nothing at all. Your 3 technique D tackle is your leading sack man, 5 or 5.5 man for tackles for loss. Losing that's big. That to me, that'll be key in this game. Jeff, I went a little longer than I expected with that. When it comes to the opt-outs, what are your thoughts about these 4 players being absent?
So I'll take a different angle. I totally agree with you that Haskell is the most irreplaceable part of that. He held this team together. He basically, who knows what happens that Minnesota game without him. Like, he just makes great plays, and everybody knows, like, well, let's face it, we all talk about the best player in football might be Aaron Donald. If you can play that impactful from the interior defensive line, it completely disrupts the team.
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
he feels like one of those guys that everybody kind of clung to, so, the leadership and all that, so I totally agree with that. So I went kind of a different way. What I do like about this is, and I say I like about this, because I did not expect, you can go back to my podcast. I never thought Olave would play. I never thought Wilson would play. I don't blame him. I'm a spilled milk guy. They're gone. They're not playing. Okay, great. Okay, let's move on. What I do like about this is now it's CJ Stroud time. Okay, instead of having Wilson out there, as a relief and maybe him kind of the glue, or Olave, which we know what he's done since his freshman year, honestly. Now, when the guys come back to the huddle or to the sideline, they're looking at CJ, these young guys, these young, talented guys, whether it's Harrison or Njigba, whoever, they're looking at Stroud for answers. And now Stroud's got to come up with answers. And, this game is one thing. It's very important. But we also, like, the season's going to start again next year, whether, what I mean? It's going to feel like it's right around the corner. We need to find out a little about Stroud. He's not going to be able to lean on those guys. Wilson can get open anytime he wants on any football team in America, probably including the NFL next year.
Yeah.
He's not going to have that. He's going to have to recognize things. He's going to have to get a feel for the game. And so I do like that about these games. I like it, especially with teams like Ohio State, the Alabamas, the top, 5 big programs. They over recruit. They bring all these guys in. This is a huge chance for them to shine. These guys have practiced all year. Let's not forget. These wide receivers have practiced all year and then not got much playing time. Probably less playing time than I thought we were going to get. Compared. Nobody saw Smith and Jigba having the season he did. That's awesome. I mean, obviously this game, we'll talk about here in a minute. A lot on his shoulders, but I love it that it's like, okay, Olave and Wilson kind of helped get Stroud through the season. He got better as the season went. I think he played a lot better against Michigan than most people do. I said it on your show. I've said it on other shows. So now it's time for, like, when that freshman comes over and he's like, "Oh, I my bad. I didn't see that. I took one step too many." Blah blah. This is a time for Stroud to, like, exert his leadership or whatever and lay the groundwork for next year. So I love that about this game, even though I've got it down that I think the opt-outs, and I know this sounds crazy, but I really went through it in my head. I think it's a 10 to 14 point swing, because I think, well, if Garrett gets him off the field on third down, or Garrett Wilson gets the big third down, or there's a turnover or whatever, like, a fumble recovery for a touchdown is a 14-point swing in a game. So I think that these opt-outs cost Ohio State 10 to 14 points, which obviously basically eliminates any gap that there was between the two. I'm excited to see how the young guys step up. This is why they come to Ohio State. This is why they play the games. I give them credit for practicing, they go to the same film room. They do the same stuff. It's time to find out what they're made of. So that actually, I'm actually excited about that. And then the main thing is, it's on Ryan Day. You know what I mean? Like, you knew this was coming. You had a few weeks. I know they opted out late, but I don't think anybody can tell me that he didn't
You're
see the writing on the wall. So now it's time to find out how Dave prepared for this, how his team's prepared for this. Who do they lean on? So I'm actually excited about the opt-outs, and I'm excited about those kids' future too. Like, the best of luck to them. They gave their heart and soul for Ohio State. No hard feelings.
You're tapped into Locked On Buckeyes Live here on a Thursday evening, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. Bear with us, guys. There may be some Wi-Fi jumping, but we're still going to pull right through and run right through with this show. You mentioned some things there about recruiting, Jeff, and I think that there has been a consensus. I've seen it on Twitter. I talk to you more than I talk to other Ohio State fans, a few people I talk to quite a bit, and there's a consensus that some people believe because so-and-so has a 5-star, so-and-so has a 4-star, because so-and-so's dad is a NFL Hall of Famer, they're going to be amazing on the field. I've said it here once. I'll say it again. I'll debunk any of all. To me, that thought is, here's some vanilla talk for you to kind of get you through to the game. I don't want to give you the extra analysis needed from my end to properly analyze what's out there. Jeff, I was thinking about this. You know this name, Walter Payton. Sweetness. If Walter Payton, he had a son, Jared Payton. Since Walter Payton was a Hall of Famer, I never heard anybody say, because Jared Payton's dad is a Hall of Famer, Jared Payton's going to be amazing. I never heard anybody say that. Because
it came up a couple times. It really did. I remember I was like, I know you're talking about. He played. I believe he was the backup in the when McGahee went out. Am I correct?
I think he wasn't
in the 02 game.
Yeah, he's not a bad player. Don't get me wrong. He's not a bad player. He had some good plays there in Miami. But people, I think, are prematurely saying so and so is going to be X, Y, and Z. Only qualification is because of who his dad is or because of who the stars are. I say it on the show, maybe too much, but I think it needs to be said. The stars in your name don't mean anything. One deal. If the stars meant everything, Tate Martell would be a Heisman Trophy winner because of what he did in high school. I mean, I'm just being honest with. That's how I think
you're right.
People nowadays.
You could go on and on. Spencer Rattler, like they're gone. I totally agree. I'm with you here.
And I think that I'm not saying these guys are going to be bad. I have high hopes for Marvin Harrison Jr. I have high hopes for Emeka Egbuka. I'm not saying that they're going to be bad players. I just think people put too much stock into their recruiting and into the recruiting databases. I think this game, though, Jay, you talk about C.J. Stroud. This is a game where those guys, they're going to make mistakes. This is the first time getting to a significant playing time. They're going to make mistakes. This is a time for C.J. Stroud to use that chip on his shoulder from being fourth in the Heisman race to say, hey, guys, I get I don't have my normal dogs with me. I need to rely on you. You're going to make mistakes. Don't worry about it. Let's power through this thing. There might be a time in this game where Marvin Harrison Jr. or Emeka Egbuka or Julian Fleming may make an amazing catch, a big play, and it may go back to a conversation they have with C.J. Stroud on the sidelines after a bad play, after a bad read could result in an interception from C.J. Stroud. Stroud goes to them, say, hey, look, we weren't on the same page. Let's get on the same page. We need and we want to win this game. I get all that talk, but I think this game, as you said, with Stroud focusing on those receivers that are going to get more playing time, this is a game where Stroud can put a good mark on people's minds about him going into next season.
JJ, you said, like, you just gave the pregame speech, if you ask me. This is what I've thought. This is what I've thought from, and let me tell you when this started. Like, we can, I'm not going to go on a rant about it, but this goes like when they're on stage for the Heisman Trophy and he gets embarrassed in front of the national audience. I'm like, this is what I'm trying to tell you, CJ. This is what I've been saying all year. And again, I think he stood up and he played. I think he played really tough in that Michigan game. But I agree with everything you said 110%. This is the moment to where he's like, okay, I'm going to get you guys through this. Like, we're going to fight through this. Like, you whether it's you spend an hour after practice or whether it's in your hotel room instead of playing Madden, shout out to John Madden, by the way, whether you're playing Madden, this is where you might watch a couple extra film, or this where, I don't care if you're running routes in the lobby of the hotel. This is where those little things take place. And you're going to see it with CJ. We've saw other guys step up and do this over the years. And I just can't agree more. And that's why, we'll get to it here in a minute. That's why I like this game better than a lot of Buckeye fans do. I'm not near as negative on this because if I'm going to believe in CJ Stroud, then I'm going to say he's as good a quarterback as to deserve being in New York his first season as a starter, then I can't now say, oh, he needs to have NFL talent around him. That's college football for you. Alabama's going to be without, one of their best players in the playoff game. Nobody's counting Alabama out because it's just unfortunate part of the game. And I know that, what they lost was big. But I've already discussed that. It's not like that's why you have the running backs back there. A guy like Mayan Williams, I honestly I think he's going to play like his hair's on fire. I really think
Jeff, I love that.
that's a
Keep going,
guy
buddy.
that's going to be like, okay, if you need me to do this, I'll do it. I remember the last Rose Bowl. I mean, Brendan White was the defensive MVP. He didn't even stay on the team. Like sometimes you just step up in the moment and you're ready for it and you're excited for it. And if Stroud can do that, I feel good about it. But I love that speech you made, man. I think we need to send this to the Buckeyes because if they're not ready to play after that, Jay Stevens, I don't know when you are.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buckeyes live here on a Thursday evening, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. We're here with Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network, getting you ready for the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. How Ohio State wins the Rose Bowl. You see it there in the title. We talked about the opt-outs. We talked about a little bit about CJ Stroud. Jeff, let's go a little bit further into strengths that Ohio State has in this game.
We already talked about it. We've talked about Stroud enough. I think he's a strength. I really do. I'm not going to ignore the fact that I think he's one of the best, quarterbacks in the country. He grew up as the year went on. And just the general offensive talent. Because here's the thing about football. I understand that the receivers will make mistakes and this guy will make mistakes. The fact of the matter is, though, speed stays the same. So if these guys get into open field, you still have to catch them. The tight ends, I think, could be, a big difference maker. There's just a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. I think they can still make explosive plays to put pressure on Utah. So honestly, I think one of their biggest strength is just simply offensive talent. Like in Jigba, like I don't know. He's a great matchup against Utah, whether it's distracting their great linebackers or whether it's putting pressure on the center of their defense and the safeties or whatever. Like guys like that, I love that. I think this is one of the big things that I don't do a lot of intangibles when I talk about college football, but this is one I like. This game is not too big for the Buckeyes. They've been playing a win or nothing game for 10 weeks. Like this is just how they live. When you're like, it, you watch the Buckeyes every week. I'll be honest, people watching the Rose Bowl won't remember that Utah lost early games. And I don't care that they did. They were a great team at the end of the year. I said Utah should get a shot at the national title by the way they played late in the year. But the fact of the matter is, nobody remembers those early losses as to where Ohio State, the Oregon game last night, or a couple nights ago, anybody watched Oregon, Oklahoma, they still brought up the Ohio State game. Like Ohio State, every game Ohio State plays is do or die. So the game is just not going to be too big for them. If they get down 14, I don't think they'll crumble. I don't think they'll run away from it. This is why you go to Ohio State, because Jay said it earlier. This is a consolation game, and it's the biggest non-playoff bowl game. This is a consolation game. So I think a big edge is that they're just not scared of it, and I think that they did this a little bit in 14, not to compare the teams, but when Ohio State's a little bit underestimated, that helps. For the first time, like everybody, I don't care what the spread says, I don't care what Vegas says, people feel like Ohio State's the underdog in this game. That doesn't happen to Ohio State really ever. Like they never get that chance. So it doesn't mean a lot, but it's something. You know what I mean? If that's some kind of chip they can make up, if it's some kind of disrespect, whatever. Every other team gets to do it against us every year. So enjoy that, Ohio State. People think that you're going to get smashed by Utah. So those are just some things. I think essentially it's mentality. I could go on about Ryan Day as a play caller. Like it's hard for me. It's hard for me to be totally negative about Ohio State when I saw that Clemson game last year and how the last 2 years, the last two playoff games against Clemson, how they adjusted and had a game plan. So I don't perceive Ohio State as bad as a lot of people do. I keep thinking about this. if the last game we saw was Ohio State versus Michigan State, everybody would be like, "Oh, this is going to be a blowout, Ohio State." It's
Mm-hmm.
I I went back and I've watched a couple times that Utah versus Oregon, Pac-12 championship game. Oregon looked terrible. Like, I'm sorry, Utah's a really good team. Again, I think they deserved a shot at the title. Oregon looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a mismatch. That was never going to happen. Brown was completely out of sorts. That wasn't the dominant performance that I thought it was when I watched it live that night. So now all of a sudden, our lasting memories are one thing, but I'm like, I don't know, because I just Ohio State put some good tape out there too, is what I'm saying. I don't think they're near the dumpster fire that the haters want you to think they are. So I think Ohio State can play tiny bit of underdog in this one.
They can. A few strengths that I think when I look at this game, I got some on offense, some on defense. You've mentioned a couple players already. I'll go to the backfield first before going outside wide. I think Mayan Williams can have a big game in this game. I
Mhm.
think him running in between the tackles, I would prefer to have him do that than Travion Henderson. Henderson does get dinged up a little bit more than I thought he would, especially his freshman year. He does get dinged up, and they'll take him out of the sidelines, miss a couple series, come back in. And I those are situations that if you don't have a backup running back like a Mayan Williams or even a Master Teague, I'm not going to scoff over and look over him. If you don't have a backup running back like that that's been seasoned, that's played a little bit in Teague, or a guy in Williams that can be a change of pace, different type of runner, Henderson going out, he might not be out as long because you need him in the game. I think this is a Mayan Williams type of game. I think if Stroud, with the absence side, two of them, two future NFL football players, I think that this is a game where Mayan Williams can ease the load off of CJ Stroud and assist him via the play action game. Another one, I hope that Ryan Day goes back to the pre-snap movement. If it's Dover and if it's Ruckert, or if it's Ruckert and G. Scott Jr. I know Case linebacker lately, so not really sure what side of the ball he'll be on. But no matter what it is, pre-snap movement helps not just Stroud, helps the game. And so I hope that we see that, because I think Mayan Williams can have a big game in this game. On the outside, you mentioned something about Jackson Smith and Jigba that I've been up in the back and forth about all week. One thing Jeff and I do is we talk. We don't really share thoughts or notes the week, so all this stuff is coming at us, and we're kind of reacting authentically because we just don't know what the other person's going to say. Keeping Smith and Jigba in the slot is going to be a matchup nightmare. Because let's just say you want to put your number one on him in the slot. Well, used to being inside that box, inside the mess, inside the mud. And so he may guard him and may guard him good, but Jackson Smith and Jigba is too good to let him beat him all four quarters. It may be a battle the entire time. Marvin Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian on the outside. Let them cook on the outside. Let them get some run. But keeping Smith-Jigba on the inside, but then using that's huge on defense. This is a Ronnie Hickman game, man. I mean, this is a Ronnie Hickman type of move around, be back there at the strong safety spot, come up and play that third linebacker. I've heard Ohio State, Jeff, this might surprise you, might use 3 true linebackers in this game. Not pull up Hickman and be a linebacker, but they might actually use 3 linebackers at times throughout this game. Something we really haven't seen all year long. I think this is a Ronnie Hickman game. Him being a sure tackler, him being able to move all over the field, play multiple positions. This is something that Cam Rising, Utah's quarterback, can get flustered because he has his eyes on him. And before he knows it, Jeff, Tyreek Smith does the unthinkable and has the game of his life.
No, I totally agree. I didn't. You went into it more than I thought we would. But I totally agree with. I got notes on here of like if the defensive line just shows. And here's the thing: this is the part about having 3 weeks off. Honestly, like if we saw Jack Sawyer have 3 sacks, I wouldn't be surprised.
No
bowl games. If anybody's watched these bowl games, they're an entirely new season. Basically, like they really are. Teams get rested. They get healthy. On the offense, you did a great job with the defense there. So I won't even go into it. Like you said everything I want to say. So I'm going to say a couple things. I think we see a lot of Henderson motioning out to the slot. Something they did.
Didn't think about that part.
In years, and it's different coaches and all that, but we did a little bit with Zeke Elliott. and he was a matchup nightmare because you had to be prepared to tackle him, out of the backfield. Then he went out into the slot, and then you're like, I really don't know, but he's a good enough receiver and he's a good enough athlete to expose that. So now you've got pressure on the linebackers. By the way, Utah, great linebackers. I can't say enough good things about Utah's defense and their IQ. When you watch that Oregon game, they knew every play that was coming, every snap. They show great fronts. They really fool quarterbacks or whatever. Stroud has to be really patient in this game and not go for the bait. You know what I'm saying? Like he can't, like if a guy's wide open, he might not be wide open. And that's kind of what Ohio State's got to do. The same to Utah is what you were talking about. But I see a lot of Henderson motion now. If they commit to a big lineup, maybe you got Ruckert, Scott, and Henderson all. The next thing you know, you're 5 wide. Take it. You can run out of those formations. Like that's the thing. Like,
yes,
Day has to not be scared to like go ahead and follow through with the plan. Like a lot of times I think we see Ryan Day and he's like, you're like, oh, I love this lineup. I don't know how many times you've texted me this season, Jade, you were like, that lineup was great. They did this, they did that. And then it disappears for 2 weeks. Like, don't be scared of it. Don't play it safe. Commit to it. If it's working, like Rucker, honestly, he's a big, like, Utah's tight end's really good too, by the way. His name escapes me, but really good. But Rucker could have, like, if he has a huge game because of everything you just said about Njigba, I would believe that. It's just a matter of if Day commits to it. If he tries to essentially just replace Wilson and Olave and run the same offense, I think they're in big trouble. I really think they're in big trouble because Henderson has trouble, like, getting outside the tackle, and he goes down with the hit. Utah's going to attack, and things like that. So if they try to just replace Olave and Wilson, I think they're in trouble. I think if they mix it up, a lot of motion, shift. If you're line up a tight end, get a tight end out wide, bring him down close, give different looks, it's basically a chess game. You know what I mean? Utah's a really well coached team. Ohio State's a kind of really well coached team. Hopefully a little better next year coach team. But what I mean is, though, try to get their defense thinking, because Oregon couldn't, and Utah was one step ahead of them. And then before you knew it, the game was over. Ohio State can't get into that. They can't play checkers if Utah's playing chess.
That is so true, Jeff. Let's go to some weaknesses here. When I look at the weaknesses that Ohio State may face in this game, let's go back and go to a game you mentioned earlier, and we'll walk right through this thing. Oregon game. Everybody remembers the name Noah Sewell. Remember the name Justin Flo. Justin Flo got hurt in the game, but those two linebackers gave Ohio State fits and problems all game long. It wasn't just that it was early in the season. It wasn't just that there were problems there. No, I think that was a sign that Ohio State did not fix all year long. Good linebacker play really messes up this team. Let's go through to the Penn State game. People say, oh, it's the Penn State. Oh, they always play us tough. Well, once again, Penn State has good linebackers. They have a really good defense. Good linebackers mess up this team. Nebraska. I was saying it so often. The Nebraska team, their defense is good.
I'm sorry. This game reminds me so much of the Nebraska game. I'm glad you brought that up.
The Nebraska game. What did we say here? Good linebackers mess up this team. I talked about JoJo Domann. Now, he's not really just inside the box all the time. Talk about JoJo Domann, the type of player that he is. What happened? He made plays in the first quarter, and if Nebraska has an okay offense, they beat Ohio State that day in Nebraska for the 381st consecutive sellout, not counting what's happening last year during the COVID year where there was no fans allowed in the stands. The Michigan game, I think that was my fault. I'm going to publicly say I messed up where I didn't factor in how good their linebackers are. I know how good Ajabo and Hutchinson are, but I didn't factor in how good Michigan's linebackers are. That was a big piece of that as well. So let's go back. I mentioned a Noah Sewell. You may know the name Panea Sewell, who plays for the Detroit Lions, nor the Oregon Duck. Now they got a guy named Nephi Sewell who plays at Utah, plays linebacker. So those Sewell boys, they're different. I don't know what their dads are feeding them, but I want some of that in my diet. I want to be like them tomorrow. I want to be just like them. Nephi Sewell and Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd, that I've been told is a future first-round draft pick at linebacker. Nephi Sewell is amazing. These guys fly around the ball consistently. One weakness I see, Jeff, we talked about this pre-show, won't go crazy in depth with this right now, but Ohio State's offensive lineman, it's generally been the guard-center guard combination. Interior, when you move guys around, you have guys out of position. A lot of times there's been issues there, and sometimes crossing the face of the guard. You're looking at the offensive guard from right to left. There is a tendency from these guys to get crossed by their face, and that's a good way to defeat these guys. I say all that to say this. I'm not so much worried about Thayer Munford moving to left tackle. My thing is, I talked about this on the show during the middle of the season. I think I mentioned it to Jeff in a text. If you don't have the stamina and endurance to play 4 quarters, and all of a sudden you're thrust into that position to play 4 quarters of football in the Rose Bowl, it's tough. We talked about Ohio State rotating so many guys on defense and even on the offensive line, rotating guys. I talked about the stamina of those players. I'm curious about how that's going to go this week for Matt Jones. I'm not so much worried about Thayer Munford. He's played in left tackle before. He's played all 4 quarters before. He's a left tackle in the NFL. My person I'm watching is Matt Jones, because endurance-wise, mentally and physically, this is going to be mentally and taxing more than any game he has played this year. Nephi Sewell and Devin Lloyd know that, and I think they're going to attack him more via blitzes, via more slants and stunts on the defensive line of Utah. And I think that's a huge weakness for Ohio State going into this game.
Yeah, I totally agree. And especially this Rose Bowl, it's long. I mean, the Rose Bowl will be 4.5 hours long. It drags out. I mean, it is grueling. Nothing's fast. I agree. Like, you brought up some great points that, I wasn't obviously I was not an offensive lineman, and some of the things you said, I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Like, tackles are taught a certain way. I just want to say that Lloyd is my favorite defensive player that I went back and watched this year. I just love.
Wow.
I'm not saying he's the best. He just plays defense the way I love it. Instinctual. He reads everything. He's so smart. They're all on the same page. He just the nuances or whatever. I'm not saying he's I'm not saying he's Micah Parsons. Like last year, I would have told you, like, Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in the draft, blah, blah, blah. But this Lloyd, I love. And Sewell, too. Sewell, they're a little different. But that Lloyd, you can tell he's the linchpin. Like, you can tell he is the difference in that defense. It's him and Stroud. I mean, that's it. That it is him and Stroud versus each other in this game. They do a great job of masking defenses and things like that. I think the offensive line is a huge problem. Now, the only thing I do like about it is sometimes you're just big enough that you can make a wall. Yeah. And I know that sounds crazy. And Ohio State got away with probably, if I had to go look back 7 or 8 games this year, to where they were just so big, they just made a wall and Stroud was able to throw behind it. And if that happens, it cancels that out. But you and I both know it's about the points too. Like, if Ohio State's up 14, everything we just talked about's out the window. If they're down 14, the now's when you got a serious problem with blitzing. Again, I know everybody, the last time they watched Ohio State was that Michigan game. Do I think if Ohio State and this Michigan team play in the Rose Bowl Saturday, it's the same game? I really don't.
Mm-mm.
That doesn't mean it didn't happen, but you can't tell me the weather, the snow, like all these things were a factor. Michigan deserved to win the game. I'm not saying that, but I think everybody's getting a little crazy of like, oh, this is what you can do. This is what you can do. Well, why couldn't Michigan State do that on a sunny day in November? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's as clear cut as people think is what I'm getting at. But this Utah defense is going to give them fits. I honestly don't expect Ohio State to be up at the half. Like, when it goes to halftime, I don't expect Ohio State to be having a great game because of all these things. But I'm given, I think me and you are both on the same page here. Ryan Day's on the clock. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I really think this is about Ryan Day and is about adjustments. It's about, is his team ready to play? It's about the energy, all of these things that revolve around a coaching staff, and how they come out of halftime. So if he's passed most of the tests so far, like he hasn't had that many, like I said, he's got the Clemson game last year that he kind of built on. The Alabama game was what it was. This year was up and down. So he's going to be on the clock. If his team comes out and is not ready and doesn't care, then it's over. I'm just telling you right now, it's over. Like, the coaching search is on, and that's how it's going to be. I do not care. I don't really care what anybody says. I don't perceive that, but I just the linebackers for Utah are going to be a huge problem. Again, it goes back to can they commit to a 21, 22, 12 personnel, whatever it is? Can they commit to that for a game instead of trying to score 70?
There was a time, Jeff, that I thought Ryan Day was a few notches above Lincoln Riley. And I know you to Oklahoma fans, if you're watching this, like, why would Oklahoma fans watch this? Because it's Ohio State, and everybody wants to hear what's going on with the Ohio State Buckeyes.
If that's one thing I've learned this year, everybody pays attention to Ohio State. And I'm tired of arguing about it. You're all obsessed with Ohio State, and that's fine. We love you.
We do. And there was a time that I said Ryan Day's a better coach than Lincoln Riley. It both came in, they came out, but Lincoln Riley came after Bob Stoops, a Hall of Fame coach. Urban Meyer was here before Ryan Day, Hall of Fame coach. Denied that. Both were at Fox, did amazing things there on the television. So there was a time I thought, Ryan Day is was a few notches above Lincoln Riley, which is amazing. Because Lincoln Riley, I think, did some amazing things at Oklahoma. But in this game, I also have a 3 to 5 year rule for coaches, 3 to 4 years. I think at a program like Ohio State, your first 3 to 4 years, you can make a snap judgment and have analysis to get to where you're going to come to. Players, I give you 3 to 5 years in the pros. I give you 3 to 5 years for you to tell me what kind of player you're going to be throughout your career. Not saying you can't get better, but I can generally see 3 to 5 years what kind of player you're going to be. For coaches, 3 to 4 years. I hate the firing after a year. I hate the firing after 2 years. Urban Meyer situation, I get it. I think there are some things internally that were going on that we will never know about, maybe 5-10 years down the road. And I think there was a lot of stuff going on inside there, which led to him getting fired during the first season while he was there in Jacksonville. So that's one thing. That people might take Ryan Day down a couple notches if this game is as you describe. If Ohio State comes out flat and comes out and they're not sharp, if they're not strong, Ryan Day normally has his teams ready for bowl games. That long layoff, he normally has his teams prepared. This is a different team than the past 2 years, different leadership than the past 2 years. Not as many pros on this team as the past few years. So the whole 3 to 4 year thing, Jeff said it very well. I know we don't go this sharp, but this is a game where this is a defining moment for Ryan Day. People out there may say Ryan Day has his job for the next 7-8 years. Okay, great. You got to prove it to me. Like, you have to show me. Yes, you've been in the playoff the past 2 years. Did not make the playoff this year. Jeff and I will talk about this at the end of the season. Already talked about some future shows we're going to do. Report card grades. I'm not going to be to let up or be soft on anybody here right now. This is a game where Ryan Day can prove himself as as an elite college football coach. We heard what Jim Harbaugh said. People ripped him for it. But maybe, just maybe, he is a Larry Coker. Maybe he is somebody coming after a legend or somebody that had success, and he is somebody that cannot take it up a notch. Maybe he takes it up a notch in recruiting, but in the season, maybe. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he isn't. I am watching Ryan Day in this game. I believe in Ryan Day. I'm not saying I don't believe in him. I believe in Ryan Day. But sometimes my belief in what I think is going to happen, it's been wrong, and I have to alter my analysis to get to a different opinion the next time. This is a game where Ryan Day can prove himself. Him and Lincoln Riley, to many people, are on the same level playing field. I talked to Bill Bender from Sporting News before the season about the Sporting News coaching rankings. Do it again before next season as well. This is a game where if you want to be solidified as a top 2 coach, if you want to be looked at as a better coach than Kirby Smart, a better coach than Brian Kelly, this is a game, Jeff, where you prove himself. I believe in Ryan Day, but the game has not been played yet. So my belief in Ryan Day, he has to show me he can prove that he is a coach to seize the moment, seize the day, and win a big game in Pasadena.
Yeah, totally agree. I think this is 100% about Ryan Day. And I'll even go so far as to say I think Ohio State there's a world where Ohio State can lose this game and still be like, okay, that's what we needed to see. I really do.
Yes.
I'll just say it out loud. There's all kinds of excuses. They can't play flat again. They cannot get pushed around again. They're especially their young players, like they need to take that next step. There has to be some advancement. There's so many things going on that the conversation can't be about the opt-outs and things like that. It has to be about, wow, that was a tough team and they really, mustered up. Like Dabo Swinney is getting all the credit in the world for his team winning the Cheez-It Bowl. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But he understands
yes.
what needs to be done. And honestly, if you watch that Clemson game, they have a lot of questions,
Yes.
but they squeak through a game that they needed to win. They get to pound their chest, and then now that buys them 6 months before the season starts to figure out who's going to play quarterback, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. Ohio State needs to buy themselves that time because, especially with the transfer portal now, with the way recruiting is, they cannot lay an egg in this game because I've said it before. I famously said if he does that, then he's going to have an Oregon loss, a Michigan loss, a Utah loss, and an Alabama loss in the last 12 months. Like, he can't do that. I know when you say it out loud, it sounds bad. Like, as good as they've been, that's going to be the story. So you don't want to be in a Larry Coker situation.
I don't think Urban Meyer had 4 losses in a 12-month calendar span while at Ohio State. I know he
No.
had the Michigan State loss, Clemson loss in 2013.
And then
2014.
They had Virginia Tech. He had Virginia Tech. Not very, and then didn't
but
lose.
No, he never had 3 losses in one season either.
No.
So even if you go the 4 to 12-month span, he never had 3 in one season. So I mean, this is a defining. If you go back and look at Larry Coker's little record. I say little record. He had 3 losses in a few seasons, and you could see there were things. Even though he was winning 9, it was 9-3 a lot of years. You could still see that there were issues with that team. They were still getting some really good recruits. Yeah. There were still issues with it.
And let me tell you, man, in 10 years from now, nobody will remember how good Utah was if Ohio State loses to Utah. You see what I'm getting at? Like, yes, I know how good this Utah team is, and I wish they had a shot at the national title, and I wish the Buckeyes did too. But if Ohio State loses to them, it's only Ohio State they're going to focus on. And congratulations to Utah if they win. I'll say that ahead of time. They'll deserve it. They had a great season. It is what it is. But the truth is, in 10 years, it'll be like it will be a stain. So it's a big game. Even though we also kind of agree that it doesn't matter. It's a weird season. Yeah. So. Yeah. Here's all I care about in this game. I want to see how this team shows up. Like, after the Michigan game, they had every right to not care about the rest of the season. I want to see the energy they show up with. That'll tell me everything I need to know about Ryan Day.
Jeff, who wins quickly? Who wins the game? Everybody heard me yesterday say I think Utah wins this one. I'll say it again before Jeff gives his thoughts. But who wins the game?
I've got Ohio State by 5. I think they'll be down after the first half, and I think that they'll struggle through it somewhere around 35-30 Ohio State. I think they're a little tougher than people think they are.
The linebacker play to me, I think, is key, and I think we have seen it. I'm going back to what I've seen this year. I think Devin Lloyd and Nephi Sewell combination might be the best 2 linebackers that Ohio State has faced all year, and that's what I'm banking on. I'm banking on the future first-round pick of Devin Lloyd and Nephi Sewell. Whatever those Sewell boys are eating, Pops, give it to me. I want what you got. That's why I'm going with Utah. We went a little bit longer, but it's fun. Jeff Hunt's here with us on the Off the Ball Network. He has Ohio State by 5. I have Utah winning. I'm not giving a score prediction. That's what I do. The Rose Bowl is tomorrow. What you can do right now, hop on that YouTube chat in the comments. Let us know who you think is going to win, Ohio State or Utah. I will leave a little pinned comment right there as well. Filter that bad boy down. Who you got? Utah, Ohio State. Do you agree with Jeff and I? Do you disagree? Do you agree with certain things? Fill that comment section up. Let's keep this thing going. Also, subscribe. Keep this YouTube channel growing every single day. Jeff, I went a little bit longer. Where can people find you on Twitter and catch all the good stuff you're doing at the Off the Ball Network?
I appreciate it, man. First of all, I want to say Happy New Year to Jay, and I want to thank you. This will be the last show that anybody hears pre-Rose Bowl, the last game of Ohio State season. It's been a pleasure to work with you all year. It's been a pleasure to discuss things. It's been a pleasure to talk things out. And I want to thank you and the Locked On Buckeyes podcast for having me on repeatedly to rant and rave about my beloved Buckeyes. You can find me at Jeff Needs Sports. You can find me at JHunt006 on Twitter. And you can also go to the Off the Ball Network and check out all the things we're doing over there. I appreciate you and Happy New Year, everyone. Go Bucks.
Happy New Year, guys. You can follow me on Twitter at JStevens07. For Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network, I am Jay Stevens. This is Locked On Buckeyes Live. We are out on a Thursday evening. Have fun New Year's Eve. Be safe. Watch those playoff games, but be in your spot 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday to watch the granddaddy of them all.